first aid nursing yeomanry, which is something I didn't do any of, but it was a women's organisation, a women's force.
That's right, and you were attached to the SOE, and you were a code cipher, and when war was declared over, VE Day, you were actually in Italy, weren't you?
Yes.
Do you remember anything of that day, Jean?
Yes, I do, because we were all breathless waiting to find out what was going to happen next. I'd been on a night watch in the bit of where I was working, studying, that sort of thing, and it came out and went back to my office in the morning and sort of thing, and I suddenly heard the guns going off and the noises and everything, and thought, we're celebrating, and this is the end.
Alistair, I don't know if you're interested, but I have here a copy of the letter that Jean sent her sister Pat, who was in London and saw the palace and the Queen. She sent her a letter on VE Day from Italy. Will we read a little bit, Jean, of this?
Yes, you read.
This is just so wonderful and overwhelming, Pat. One knew it was on its way, but it just leaves me feeling mentally exhausted. I wish I had been in London. It must have been colossal. Oh, honey, it's glorious, isn't it? No more organised murder in all of Europe. That was Jean writing to Pat. Pat, what were you doing in London at the time?
Well, I was in the Women's Royal Naval Service, and I was in London because my main job in the war was, because I knew German. We had an Austrian housekeeper at home, and I'd learnt conversational German. So I spent the war actually listening to German naval messages over radio. By the end of the war, of course, that was not happening. And so I was then attached to one of the ministries in London to read through the evidence that our troops were sending back from Germany to see if we could spot enemy who would need to be tried at Munich.
And actually, on VE Day, you took time off to go to the palace, didn't you?
Oh, several of us went to the palace. It seemed the one place to be on VE Day.
And you saw the Queen and our current Queen.
We did. I think they all came out on the balcony. We were all standing around below and cheering. I saw Lord Louis Mountbatten, I think, driving maybe to the Abbey or somewhere. And it was just a wonderful day.
Tessa, let me just interrupt to tell you and also Pat and Jean that folk who are listening to our conversation on radio rather than television are indeed looking at Her Majesty the Queen when she was Princess Elizabeth, the Queen Mum, Churchill, George VI and Princess Margaret, Princess Rose, there on the balcony. And we saw some of those extraordinary images of people there. That's a top shot now of the area just by the Victoria Monument outside Buckingham Palace. Tessa, you and I have talked about your brilliant book, and I'm not just saying that because you're a friend of mine. It is a brilliant book about the army girls. But I gather those two extraordinary women sitting to your left have also resolved to produce a book, or have perhaps already done it and finished it. Yes. Is it with the publishers yet? I cannot wait to read it. Can they tell us a little bit about the high points?
Yes. So there's two books, isn't there? There's one about your dad, and there's also the book about you, Code-Breaking Sisters. Tell Alistair, which are you most proud of? Code-Breaking Sisters, I think.
Well, in a way, but, we did admire our father very much, and even more when he got home and told us how he had worked in the camp for our prisoners. Yes, I think it was a very satisfactory memory to look back on.
Just a final note, going back to that original letter from Jean on VE Day. She writes here, I was on duty, so we heard the King's broadcast. It's also dramatic and happy. And Churchill's message to the Far East, where their father was hopeful. She quotes Churchill, "Lift up our hearts, for we are coming." Do you remember that, Jean?
I do remember that. I know we didn't physically ourselves go, but we were there. We were part of it.
You were. You absolutely were. Aren't they remarkable, Alistair? They're two most remarkable sisters. They live on their own. They are such firm friends of mine. I've known Pat since Bletchley Girls, 10 years now. I tell you what, she's quite a disciplinarian. You have to remember your thank you letters. And Jean, a wonderful sister.
Well, my mum was also a Wren, as we call it, so I know a little of the discipline and the service that the Wrens gave. And, of course, the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, was a very senior Wren and was the boss person of that organisation until, unfortunately, it was merged, something that my mother never quite forgave the Ministry of Defence for. We're getting a few calls to say that folk recognise the two main medals that Jean and Pat have got, but would love an explanation on the red one there, which I think is on Jean's
now this
coat.
Pat, over to you.
Pat,
Tell us
I beg your
about
pardon.
this beauty.
Well, that medal is my Légion d'honneur, which the French government very generously gave some of us their very glamorous, I think, medal, the Légion d'honneur. Not that I was in France, but I suppose the work we were doing helped to liberate France, and I thought that was extraordinarily generous of them.
And this one
No, Tessa. The extraordinary thing is the modesty with which she says that. And she said, oh, yes, it's a Légion d'honneur. I mean, blimey! Well done, utterly brilliantly. And the Bletchley women and the code breakers and the rest of them did help liberate Europe and did help win the war. And as has been observed by all great historians, lovely Tessa included, saved literally hundreds and thousands of lives. Truly extraordinary.